everybody to today's webinar called More Mentors for Stronger CSA Networks. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tom Uhnák. I'm from the Association of Local Food Initiatives, short AMPI, the Czech CSA network based in Prague. As the participants are entering the webinar now, we will play a short video about CSA that was just released. Please enjoy.
Food citizens. Consumers who are changing the world. To be a member of a CSA community or food cooperative means that you receive a weekly share of vegetables, fruit, meat, eggs, or other food products with a group of like-minded people from reliable farmers who live nearby. Do you know that you belong to a group of food citizens? By making conscious decisions and buying products directly from farmers, you are making a great impact on the environment, society, and the local economy. We will show you these impacts now. You probably haven't thought about all of them. It would be great if more consumers would join you and become food citizens themselves. Together, we can have a much bigger impact. You support the farmer and their family directly by buying from their small-scale farm. Thanks to your long-term engagement, the family who runs the farm can secure income all year and make a living in the countryside. Do not forget, you have an impact on the farm workers too. Through these food communities, these workers receive a fair wage for their valuable work. Food citizens support the farmers, even in hard times. This was especially important when the COVID-19 pandemic started. Members' shares ensured that the farmers and their farms thrived despite the lockdowns. Large-scale, intensive farming methods exploit the environment. You make a conscious choice to respect land, water, and biodiversity. You buy the food cultivated from agroecological farms grown without harmful chemicals, in harmony with nature, the environment, and local communities. You are a climate hero. The only thing you need to bring to the delivery point is your canvas bag or a box. You can minimize food packaging without even noticing it. You do a lot for you and your family's health. These products are fresh and nutritious, and of course, tasty. After you taste a tomato directly from these farms, you will never buy one in conventional supermarkets. Thanks to agroecological production, you can be sure that you don't consume any harmful chemicals. By buying seasonal food, you can try out new flavors and live the natural cycle in your kitchen. When you buy directly from a nearby farmer and avoid food produced at the other end of the globe, you help avoid pointless transportation and minimize emissions. Strawberries in winter, Brussels sprouts during summer, only when preserved. You are changing the world. When you buy consciously, you inspire your family members, friends, and colleagues. Help us spread the word about food communities. Support local farmers, food communities, our organizations, and the networks behind the movement. For more information, visit urgency.net.
Wonderful video, wasn't it? Hello again, everybody, and hello to those who just joined us today. Now I'm going to briefly introduce our panelists, then we will get the ball rolling. And we will keep the format very conversational with short questions and answers. While I've brought some of my own questions along, we also really welcome your questions. Let me explain. Through the session, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, next to the participants button, to share your questions to the speakers. Please don't hold back. Post them as you think of them, because the first round of questions from the floor will be right after an initial question I'll be asking each of the panelists. Of course, We will try to answer most of these questions directly in the Q&A, but we will also select some of them to be asked by the person directly. Therefore, please be ready to be given the floor to actually put your question to the panelists. The idea is to make this webinar a bit more interactive. If you are not comfortable with asking your question directly, please mention it in your question, adding a note like, for example, I cannot turn my video and microphone on. On that note, let me introduce and thank Natalie and Jocelyn from Urgency, who will be together supervising the technical operation, monitoring the chat and facilitating the Q&A. Thank you, guys. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please send them a message. Send Jocelyn and Natalie a message through the chat. Note that the chat and the Q&A are two separate functions. So please do use the chat for technical questions and the Q&A for the questions to the presenters. Finally, if you're on social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc., please use hashtag Food&More, hashtag CSA, hashtag Food Citizens, and to mention us in your tweets. Before we move into our topic of the day, I'd like to ask you to take the short poll that is now appearing on your screen. It will be a way to see the kind of audience we have with us today. So please take the short poll. So simply just take one of the boxes to take part in the poll so that we know a bit better who is with us today. So, and here we have the results of the poll. It seems that majority of the viewers are members of another type of food community. So most of you are part of some type of cooperative, farmers markets, probably also as CSA members, etc. And the least members participating today are seed savers. However, there is a significant number of farmers as well among us. So welcome. Perfect. So as the community-supported agriculture movement grows and becomes more structured with an increased number of CSA networks, CSA mentorship programs are also multiplying. There are two major reasons for this. On the one hand, as the year passes, more experience is available from both the producers and from the consumers' side. On the other hand, with the ongoing growth of CSA partnerships, there are also more newcomers joining the movement. They are in need of thorough guidance in their first steps in this uncharted territory. Mentoring is therefore becoming one of the major activities a CSA network can provide to support the sound development of these partnerships. So what kind of support can be expected from a mentoring program? That's one of the questions we'll be tackling today. How can you build such a program? How long does it take to become a robust mentor? Do you want to hear success stories from CSA advisors and coaches? Food&More is a project that tries to provide answers to these questions. Food&More focuses on developing training and mentoring programs tailored to the needs of the members of the food communities like CSA groups. The main objective is to consolidate the growing food communities including the CSA networks, and to encourage their members to be more active in their groups and to be more socially engaged. This webinar is the third and last of a series of webinars where we tried to address some of the key challenges faced by the food communities in their everyday operations. In today's webinar, we are lucky to have three great speakers with us. They will help us get familiar with the debate on how to organize your food communities and how to make sure everybody is involved. They are seasoned CSA farmers and network coordinators who have direct experience of facing these challenges. We will ask our panelists to share recipes of how to build a robust mentorship program for CSA. First, we have with us today Klaus Strüber, who is an advisor for the German type of CSA, SOLAV, which stands for Solidarische Landwirtschaft. In translation, solidarity-based agriculture. Klaus was born in 1969 and has a 20-year-long experience of biodynamic farming. He is also the founder of one of the first CSA partnerships in Germany. Since 2014, Klaus has been an advisor in Europe for CSA with a specific focus on following topics: founding, economy, next generation on the farm, organizational development, roadshow. In 2021, he is leading the first advisor training program in collaboration with FIBO, the Swiss research organization. Then comes Suzy Russell. Welcome, Suzy. Suzy is a coordinator of the Community-Supported Agriculture Network in the UK, and she is passionate about local food and local communities and has worked in environmental and arts-based community development for over 20 years. We were supposed to have also another speaker with us, Zoltán Lengyel, a farmer from Hungary. He is having some technical difficulties, so we are hoping that he will join us later. So let's start together. First, I'd like to pose a question to you, Klaus. Please, could you tell us, how did you become a CSA advisor in Germany? And perhaps you could also give us a little bit of a context. Is there a lot of farmers willing to become a mentor? Is there a strong selection? Is there a training?
Yes, hello. Thank you for the speaking and for the questions. I started advising 7 years ago. I was a farmer, but I decided to switch on to advising because there was so much farms that starts with run a CSA in Germany that I think, okay, I want to help them more. Before, as I was a farmer, I just can make it in the evening, the late evening sometimes, as a after a hard farming day, and that was not enough. So I decided to make it as a professional advisor. And yes, there are a lot of farmers. I think I have in the last 7 years at least 80 projects that I have advised in Germany, in Austria, in Switzerland, in Luxembourg. Yeah, that was the countries. And I think it was uncountable telephone calls and mails I have written and talked to much farmers. And yes, they want to have advising, and it's good that we start to give the farmers then. We are not so much advisor. You ask for them also. Maybe I'm the only one in Germany who makes it really as a full-time job. But we have in Germany, of course, much more advisors, especially for cows or for vegetables or so on. And they're pretty good and they are pretty well organized. We have at least 4 or 5 organizations just only for advising in Germany. But for CSA, I think the network Solavi, you have talked about that, is the only organization who make it more professional, and we are just 5 or 6 people for the whole nation. And I hope this is more in the next years.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer, Klaus. And we have with us already the third speaker. Thank you very much for joining us. We have Zoltán Lengyel, who's a farmer in Táncosket, the dancing farm, to translate, a meat-based CSA in Hungary. Zoltán applies permaculture and holistic management, and he's also active in mentoring activities. Zoltán has quite some animals like pigs, chicken, cattle, sheep on the plains of Hortobágy in Hungary. Like Klaus, he was among the first generation of mentors for Urgency in 2019. So welcome, Zoltán. It's great that you're with us. Now I'd like to turn to Suzy for some insights about the 2 existing UK CSA networks mentoring programs. So Suzy, first, how do you define mentoring? Is it closer to advising or training or rather coaching? And how many mentors are involved in your mentoring programs? And maybe you can tell us also how dense is the network from a geographical point of view. And lastly, how do the mentees or trainees access the information to join the mentorship program?
Okay, thank you. So I was just going to give a quick background to the network. So the UK network was founded in 2013. We're a member co-op with currently 160 plus member farms across the UK in the 4 countries, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and England. And we are run by 3 part-time members of staff, which is about 1.2 full-time equivalent. And we have, as Tom said, 2 mentoring programs, a standard and incubator program. On the next. So we define mentoring really as support. I guess, yeah, it kind of hits all those things. I mean, advising, training, coaching, it can be a bit of all of them. It's very bespoke. So for some people, it's much more a day of a lot of knowledge. For others, it's a kind of ongoing process. So it really varies. We have, two different programs. Our standard mentoring program, which is 1 day of mentoring. So we delivered 16 mentoring days in 2021, and we expect to mentor about 25 farms in 21-22. It can be a visit, a remote session via Zoom or phone or both. And I'll talk a bit later about what we learned around that during the ongoing COVID pandemic. As I said, it's bespoke, so it's really tailored to the individual farm, and we spend quite a lot of time talking to the farm before we set them up with a mentor. And also sometimes the mentee will actually talk to a couple of potential mentors before they choose one. It has a small cost. It's £25 for members or £50 for non-members. And then we ask the mentor to provide a brief report at the end, and we collect feedback from the mentee on a standard form and also usually via a kind of email. And then our second program, which we've just launched this year, is our, if you do the next slide, is our incubator mentoring. So it really came out of as CSA really began to grow quite rapidly in 2019-20, and we kind of realized that there was a need for a longer, more held mentoring process for new CSA farms. So it was sort of developed to respond to that need. We're likely to benefit 18 farms this year. We're running 2 pilots. Well, we're running a pilot and another scheme. So we're running a UK-wide pilot scheme with 10 incubator CSAs. And then we're running another scheme in one county, so one specific area of England, supporting 8 new CSAs in that county as part of a wider food strategy. It's roughly 5 full days of mentoring over 18 months. They might be full days, or they might be 1 or 2 hour sessions. So for instance, in terms of the kind of coaching, one CSA on the incubator program has opted for a very, very experienced grower to mentor their less experienced grower who is acting as head grower by giving them an hour every couple of weeks, so they can just check in about what they're doing and whether they've got it right. Again, it's bespoke. It can be visits and remote contact. There's an application process, and whereas with the standard mentoring we tend to mentor everyone that asks, I mean, funding dependent, with the incubator mentoring we've had quite a long application process with a form, and then we shortlisted people and chose a number. We had more applications than we could deliver. We also add some webinar support and one-to-one contact in on top of that. So there are group webinars and some bespoke sessions. It's £100 for members, or I should say 150 actually, there's a typo there. And again, there's a report from the mentor and a more extensive feedback from the mentee. And then I think the last slide is really just to talk about our mentors. So we ask them to fill in a form which details their knowledge, skills and experience. They're approached on a bespoke basis, and often because we identify a gap. So for instance, we've just had 2 people approach us wanting to know about CSA dairy. So we've approached the only CSA dairy in England, and they are now one of our mentors. We try to cover knowledge and geography, although at the moment, as with CSAs in general, we have more mentors in the south of the country, particularly the southwest, and it is a struggle sometimes to find mentors in the north of the country where there are less established CSAs. We would like to bring mentors together, but haven't done that yet, but are sort of thinking about that. They're paid £160 a day, but would like to increase that. And it's really important that they're good with people and experience. So knowledge is not enough on its own. It's also their ability to kind of interact and share what they know. So I think, yeah, I think I've answered all of that. I mean, yes, the standard mentoring, it's a form on our website that people fill in. It comes through to myself. I read it, then I phone the potential mentee and talk to them about their needs. And then we start trying to match them up. As I said, with the incubator process, we advertised that we were doing it. And then we asked people to apply with a closing date. And then we went through all the applications and chose the 10 that we're now supporting. Hope that makes sense, but do ask questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Suzy, for the answer. Before we continue, I'd like to remind all of you participants to please continue sending your questions to our panelists through the Q&A button located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So please do ask questions. Next, we will hear from Zoltán from Hungary, who has a long experience of farming and doing CSA. So Zoltán, please, what would you say is important from your experience to become a CSA mentor in terms of professional skills, attitude, and experience?
Well, I think more it's all of them are important, but attitude is probably the most important, because if you are open and approachable, they will talk to you and ask questions, and they will trust you, and that's the key, because without trust there are no honest questions, and there goes the whole deal. In Hungary, there is no formal CSA, not really formal CSA network. So the mentoring, we don't have a formal mentoring program. It's more like if you are a well-known member of the community, they will approach you and ask questions. It's more often than not, it's based on the type of agriculture you are doing. So if you are a market gardener, obviously a meat CSA guy is not most of the time is not your mentor. Also, it's a geographic limit as well. So being in a mentor-mentee relationship for 200-300 kilometers it's quite difficult. But to deal with this issue, our network called Cookies is doing every 3-4 months a day of something. So we had a finances day or a project management day. So our network is formed around the TVA, the Association of Conscious Consumers. So they will put out a call, they poll for a date, and they ask what we need in terms of training or stuff like that, and then they organize a day, and we can go there, 10, 15, 20 farmers or CSAs are there, and we can talk between each other and also with experts of the field. So that's a really great way to train and mentor, and so CSA is mostly a culture. So the sharing of the risks and rewards and dealing with the issues is it's a way of thinking. So I find talking with other CSA farmers who are more experienced and they had probably they did deal with the same or very similar problems in the years. That's the informal talking is quite important in my view.
Great, thank you, Zoltán, for the answer. In a moment, we will turn to the audience to take 2 questions from Q&A. Please be ready to be called on the panel to ask your question with your video on. If you don't want to ask your question directly, you can mention it and we will read your question. So please go ahead. Before we do that, please allow me to ask you to fill another poll. So the question is, how could the international network urgency support mentoring for CSA? You have multiple choices. Please do submit your preferences. So the question here, and the panelists can vote too as well. So Suzy and Zoltán, please go ahead. How could the international network urgency support mentoring for CSA? So either urgency could foster information and experience sharing between existing national mentorship programs, or urgency could offer an international training for wannabe CSA mentors, or urgency could specialize in online mentoring programs that would be complementary to existing face-to-face activities. Or another choice is urgency could offer a map of mentors. And the last option provided here is anything else you can think of. You can type your answers there. So last, okay. And here we've got the answers to our poll. Thank you very much for participating in the poll. It seems that the most wanted is that the urgency could offer an international training for wannabe CSA mentors. So most of you really want to go international. Then the same place or same adequacy is that urgency could foster information and experience sharing between existing national mentorship programs, together with urgency could specialize in online mentoring programs that would be complementary to existing face-to-face activities. So it seems that you really do value the online space and online possibilities that are out there. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much. This is very valuable for us and for the urgency to create the programs, to focus on the aspects that are useful for you out there, you being members of the CSA and other networks and the farmers. So now, thank you again for participating in the poll. And now I would like to ask participant number one to please put your question directly to the panel. You should be allowed to turn your video and microphone on and ask your question in a short way. The floor is yours. Do we have a participant with a question?
I had a question.
Okay, please. Thank you.
We switched to another.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you please just briefly explain where you come from and who you are, so that we all know? Thank you.
So my name is Brechtje Hamelink. I'm from the National Network of the Netherlands. We're new, more or less. We started in the middle of Corona, so plenty of stuff to do. And one is setting up a mentoring program for existing and new CSAs. So I'm very interested in this topic. I understand this is the third part of your program, so maybe I'm asking questions that you already addressed in the other sessions, but I would be interested to know more about the content of the different programs. Is it a mix? Do you put the people in a group so they can learn from each other, or is it more individual coaching? And one part also to Suzy, because I saw that the prices of participating in the program were quite reasonable. And I wonder if this covers all the costs of the program, and if not, how do you get funding for this work?
Thank you very much for the question, very important one. Would you like to answer?
I can answer quickly on the financial one. Yeah, no, it doesn't anywhere near cover the cost. So the cost sort of, well, 250 to 300. I mean, it's gone up because we've increased our prices, pounds per day. We pay the travel cost if people travel, so it's obviously cheaper if people do it via Zoom or phone. But so we get funding. I mean, we're funded by various different people to deliver. So the incubator pilot was funded by one specific grant-making organisation, and our sort of standard mentoring is funded by a couple of different people. So yeah, we have to fill in the gap. I think it would be prohibitively expensive if we asked people to cover the full cost. So
could you give an indication of the full cost of the program?
So it's about, well, for a day, it's about it. The mentor fee is currently £160, but going up to £200. Then there's travel, which is usually, I mean, it varies, but could be £100 easily. And then there's obviously our time sort of organizing, the time that we spend as sort of project managing that. So all in, it's probably more like £450 a day for a day.
Thank you for the question and your answer, Suzy. I hope we answered all of your questions, or Brechi, is there anything else you wanted to ask?
Well, I didn't really understand. Is it very individual mentoring, or is it also group? Do you also have group courses for new CSAs?
Shall I answer for England? I mean, for Great Britain, and then I guess Klaus and Zoltán might want to answer as well.
Yes.
I mean, so our standard mentoring is individual. It's one-to-one. I mean, we have just recently done a visit to a micro dairy with two new CSAs, because they happened to apply at the same time and they both were interested in micro dairy. And actually we felt like there would be some added advantages to the two new CSAs sharing what they were thinking, as well as having the mentor, and that has worked really well actually. On the incubator scheme, the mentoring itself is bespoke and individual, but we are bringing that group of people. Most of them are coming together for every one of the 6 webinars that run alongside the incubator program, and we're also having some group meetups when all 10 of those new CSAs come together and share bits, and that we've got sort of social media groups going on where they're sharing stuff. In the UK, there's also 2 of our more experienced CSAs offer. So one offers an annual 2-day introduction to CSA residential course where people camp on their farm, and another CSA has just started doing an online introduction to CSA training course, which is more practical, I guess, and kind of more of a set curriculum. I hope that answers from our point of view.
Thank you. Klaus, Zoltán, would you like to respond as well?
Sure. Sometimes we have some EU grants and funds to do our networking stuff, but more often we are doing it as volunteers. So we mostly do it most of the time we do it for each other. So the farmers community in our CSA network is really great. So we just help out each other, and that's our approach.
Thank you, Zoltán. Klaus, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes. Hello, Brechi. Yes. So we have in Germany the network Solavi, Network Solidarische Landwirtschaft, and we have there 5 or 6 people who make advising, and the first contact in this group is for free. You can make it by email or you can make it by telephone. And this network had also 2 big meetings a year, and often when it was a physical meeting, then we have a group process, about 10-50 people, to give in a group advising for starting CSA farm people. And in Corona times, we figure out that the program of the so-called stable school method, that's actually coming from India, I think, is a really good tool to do it online farming advising process. We make it with maybe 6 or 8 farmers. We have one theme, for example, what can I do that my vegetables get enough water in the dry times of the year, and then they discuss in a special way. It's called a stable school. I think it was really successful under Corona times. And I come afterwards. So if I talk to a farmer for half an hour, maybe on the phone, and he say, okay, that was great, Klaus, but I need more. Then I need money, because it's my job, and I need real money. And but we have in Germany, according to the regional districts of Germany, some benefits from the state. It's in northern Germany up to 100% for 12 hours. It's in South Germany up to 80% for how much hours the farmer needs. So, and yeah, we have some parts in the eastern Germany where there are nothing from the state. And then the people have to pay me. But I think it's not the problem that advice costs money, because I say as an advisor, it's one of my really big points. My work should pay on a farm. So after I was on the farm, the money that I cost have to come back to the farm at best in the next year. And therefore that's my thinking. So I need money. Yes, without money I can't do a professional job, but if you buy me, then the money came back to the farm. That's my goal.
Thank you, Klaus, for sharing your experience. We have now Elizabeth Henderson with us. I'd like to ask you, Elizabeth, if you could please turn your camera on and ask your question. Elizabeth, perhaps your microphone is still muted. Can you, we cannot see you. Now we can see you.
Here we go.
Nice, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us where you come from, and could you ask your question, please?
Well, I come from the United States, and I'm the honorary president of Urgency. My farm was one of the first CSAs in the United States. My question is, in many parts of the United States, there aren't CSA networks. And from what I've observed, it's really, really helpful to the development of CSAs to have those networks. So over here in the supposedly richest country in the world, we need help developing networks so that more farmers will have access to programs like mentoring. So I guess I would appreciate people's advice on how they got their network started.
Thank you for the question, Elizabeth. By the way, I would like to inform you and other panelists that in the previous webinars that Urgency hosted, we tackled this issue, and you can also already now see the webinars in YouTube or other platforms, and it's explained in details how people start their CSAs, but we're currently here together. So I'd like to ask some of you who are active, perhaps Suzy, who is most active as a CSA coordinator of the CSA network. Could you please answer the question on how you were kind of established? I'm sure you got the question as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was before my time, but basically in the late sort of noughties, so around 2009, the Soil Association, who are the sort of main organic certifier in the UK, got some funding to run a project looking sort of at UK CSA and what state it was in. And out of that project, and sort of supporting new CSA, and out of that project came a desire from the existing CSAs at the time to have an independent network. And So the network was born really out of that, with some startup funding. So there was funding initially to pay a coordinator and an administrator, which then the network itself had to kind of find to keep on going. I hope that answers the question.
Klaus, you are part of Solavi for a very long time. Can you also share very briefly the beginnings of Solavi in Germany?
Yeah, it was quite funny because the first farm in Germany starts in 1986, and it was for long years the only farm. And I founded CSA number 7 in Germany. It was in 2007, and 2 years later or 3 years later, we together founded the CSA network Solavi in Germany, and we create these words Solavi. It was just a handful of people. It was some farmers, it was some political people, and they come from the whole country. Yeah, Germany is not so big as the United States, but from the whole country. And I think it was a kind of magic why this established so quick, because it was just 2 years later, then we are so big. And now we have 3 or 4 people have a job on this network and can do a daily work in the office, and that helps a lot.
Thank you, Klaus. Zoltán, would you like to share as well the CSA starting point in Germany? Sorry, in Hungary.
I would, but I wasn't there, so I'm not sure how it started. In Hungary, the CSA movement was started, organized by the TVE, and I'm in the second or maybe third generation of farms joining the movement. So my joinement was I went to a one day what's a CSA one afternoon workshop. And after that, I was invited by Sophie to the meeting of the farmers, and there was a group of farmers talking about stuff I was deeply interested in. So I stayed, and that's my story. So it's more like a club, really.
Thank you, Zoltán, for sharing. And thank you for active participation and asking questions. There are many more questions coming from you guys, and we will answer them all later. Now I would like to return to our panelists with my questions. I'd like to get back to Klaus. Klaus, isn't it too time-consuming for farmers to provide mentoring? How long does it take to provide quality and tailored mentoring?
Yeah, if a farmer calls an advisor, he have much try before, and then there is also a time for advising. I think the way I like personal as the best is a mentoring over a long time. I have some farms for 6 or 7 years now, and I visit them 1 or twice in a year for a half day. And then we have some telephone calls and some emails. And so I can see the development on these farms over a long side. And this was very good, I think. That's the best. But also I have some farms who I just came for one time and for just one project, maybe a crowdfunding campaign for a new stable or something else. And it was really just one project, and then I have never heard from this farm again. So yeah, the farmers called me. I am not calling farmers. That's important. So I've never ring on the phone or sent emails. Hey, I'm an advisor. Do you need advising? It's also the other way that people call me and say, hey, come on, Klaus. I've heard from you and we need help. Can you please come? And then is the time no problem. The people say, okay, we have time. Yes. Of course, often I have more to do in the winter time as in the summertime, because then the people are on the field.
Thank you, Klaus. Thank you. I'd like to turn to Suzy now and ask you a question related to the very particular period we have been going through. Has the UK CSA network been developing only online mentoring activities in the COVID-19 period? And what can be accomplished online and what cannot be done online?
Yeah, I mean, we were forced to go online by lockdown. And it's been really interesting. I guess I mean, you can't walk around a farm. We have kind of tried like video tours, but it's not, that bit is the value of walking around a farm and being able to say, oh, you know, why did you lay that out like that? Or why have you got that there? Or what crop's that? Or you can't really do online. But we hadn't done any, our mentoring had always been a full day visit. And actually what we've, since kind of lockdowns lessened, what we've been doing is combining. So people might do a shorter visit, especially when they're close by, and then do a couple of Zoom sessions, which actually gives people time to digest what they've seen on the farm and then come back with questions. So it's yeah, and it's a really effective way of sharing information. And it's meant that, I mean, it's definitely helped with mentors for CSAs who are geographically like a lot further away from our main mentors. So in Scotland and the north of England, we've obviously then been able to do mentoring by mentors from the south of England, which we couldn't do when it's face to face. So yeah, it's definitely something that was a necessity as a result of COVID, but we will keep because it's working.
Right. Thank you, Suzy. A question to Zoltán, to Hungary. Do you have both farmers and CSA members joining as mentors in Hungary? And is there a need for mentors coming from the consumer side? Or do you focus on CSA farming only, or CSA farmers only?
Not strictly speaking mentors, but we have consumers in the network, and we can ask them questions, and sometimes we do invite them to, let's say we have a CSA with a particularly good community, so we ask a key member of the community to join us for our meeting and talk to us, to mentor us. So I would say there is a need, and we have a solution, because they do join us and they help us, and it's working out really well. So we can ask questions, and we also can ask other farmers to suggest a member of their community to talk to us. How do they feel about certain issues? Also, I have a key a few key members of my CSA community in a Facebook chat group. If I have a question, I don't have time or the motivation to ask for the whole community, I can ask just the 5 of them, and they tell how they feel about a certain issue, and I can make my decision after that. So that's also quite helpful.
Yeah, thank you. We will now turn again the floor to a second round of questions coming from our viewers. So please, we have here with us Chris, I hope. Chris Morgan.
Yeah.
Hello. Can you tell us where you're coming from, and can you ask your question, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'm coming from the UK. I'm based at the Centre for Agroecology, Water and Resilience in Coventry University. I actually asked a number of questions. Apologies for that. Which question do you want me to ask, or should I? Anyone?
Any relevant?
I mean, yeah. I should say as well. I'm part of a project that's looking to set up a mentoring scheme. So that's my interest here, as well as the general interest in how farmers exchange knowledge, particularly intergenerationally, which it sounds like mentoring is a part of. But I kind of have a general question, which is just for all the panelists, which is, what was the thing that you found most challenging about setting up a mentoring scheme that you hadn't anticipated beforehand?
Thank you for the question, Chris. You can answer any of you from the panel.
I don't really understand the question.
The question is, what was the thing that you found most challenging about setting up a mentoring scheme or mentoring activity that you hadn't anticipated?
Okay, that's a good question. Challenging is for me often that community supported agriculture is often not a one-man show, it's a group. And there's a first call from one member of the CSA, and I talk with her or him about what I should do, what is the goal of advising, what is the goal of coaching. And then I'm sit there on the farm and the other people say, oh, I think we make just another theme, and I'm not so happy about what we are doing here today. So the real goal finding, not only of one person, of all person of the CSA, that's really a challenging sometimes.
Thank you, Klaus. Thank you. Perhaps Zoltán, would you like to answer?
I personally have a difficulty with bad ideas. So if there is a habit in farming, I guess when we tried it didn't work, and they ask a question and we say, yeah, this won't work, and they just stick to it, get their head down and just run with it, and they fail. And that's really difficult for me. So there was a meat farmer who was his plan was to only give the expensive parts of a pig in the CSA boxes, which cannot work because you have a whole animal to deal with. And yeah, but they won't eat the cheap cuts. So yeah, but you will fail. And this was a few months long conversations, and after like 3 years he gave up. That's really difficult for me. For a network perspective, it's the habit of they read something on the internet and they say they will be a CSA farmer. They reinvent the whole model of CSA. They say it's a new flavor or whatever, and they don't contact us, don't want to join the network because they pioneers and all that, and there is this, we see all the pitfalls, and we did that already, so we could help, but building the trust, the need to contact us and ask questions, that's really difficult for me.
Thank you for the answer, Zoltán. And Suzy, would you like to respond to Chris as well? yeah.
Can you just repeat the question, Chris? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. What was the thing that you found most challenging about setting up the mentoring scheme that you hadn't anticipated before?
Oh, well, I wasn't involved at the beginning, so it's kind of, I'm not sure how qualified I am to answer that. I guess
Or
now,
ongoing?
The geographical, yeah, I guess the sort of predominance of mentors in the south, and then like we keep going back to the same northern CSAs as mentors for the ones in the north. Yeah, we haven't had any major challenges really. I guess that's probably finding people that can, I mean, in the standard mentoring, because it's only one day, it feels quite tricky to split that into two different mentors. So sometimes the needs of the mentee don't quite fit with the available mentors. So kind of working out how to deal with that really. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chris. We have Chilakish among us. I'm sorry for wrong pronunciation of your name, most probably. Can you please introduce yourself and ask your question?
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So my name is Chilla, and I am working with Chris at the same center, the Center for Agroecology, Water and Resilience. And my question is that being a mentor can be quite time-consuming. And so I'm wondering if the question to all three panelists, like, is there a particular time that mentors would commit in the framework of your mentorship program in terms of their availability and yeah, basically availabilities of mentors? Thank you.
Thank you. Klaus, can you start perhaps?
Please, the question once again, I don't have really understand the question.
Yeah, so the question is, especially in more formal, I guess, mentorship settings, do mentors commit to a particular time frame? How much time they would be available for giving advice as a mentor? Or is it more of a flexible approach? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in praxis, if I go on a farm, I do often a half day or a complete day. It was not more because it's not effective. And online, it's often up to 1 or 3 hours, and a telephone call maximum at 60 minutes. And how big the project is, that depends on the project. So I have some farms where I ring every week 3-4 hours over maybe 5 weeks. And on the other hand, it's just one meeting on a farm for 3 hours. So that depends really on the goal.
Thank you, Klaus. Zoltán?
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. So if we are doing a formal training, obviously we check our times beforehand. If you have to be available for a webinar or whatever, which is announced and shared in social media or whatever. But usually we do meetings, and that's a fixed frame event, and it's most likely a afternoon or a day, or they can call us. We don't have a strict rule, but probably it's less than an hour and if they visit the farm, it's probably 2 or 3 hours. I don't have a special time of the week or the month for this. Farming is seasonal. When I have time, and you are welcome to visit us. But right now it's hay season. I sleep 4 hours a day. Yeah, I don't have time to anybody. But in a week or so, we will finish with haying, and I will have all the time needed. So if they contact me, right now I have like 3-4 requests. Everybody got the same answer. Give me around 2 weeks and I will be available, and you can visit me and we can talk. So it's as needed and as time allows it.
Thank you very much, Zoltán. Suzy, would you like to respond as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, really similar for us to what Zoltán said. So now is a really bad time for mentoring. No one's got any time. I mean, luckily, the times when people tend to be thinking about setting up CSAs generally coincide with the quieter times for farmers. So so often it's kind of after the summer when things are beginning to quieten down, which works quite well, or early in the year when stuff hasn't quite got crazy yet. But yeah, I mean, our mentors don't, when we ask them, when they fill in our form, there's a question about how much time they think they might commit. But I mean, it's not hard and fast, and so much of it depends on circumstance. So we always kind of say to our mentees, we'll ask that person, but they may or may not be available, and if they're not, we'll go to someone else. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Now, and thank you very much for the questions from the viewers. I'd like to ask you a last sort of feel-good question. Could you please, all of you, share any success story in terms of building a solid relationship between mentors and the mentees? Klaus, maybe we could start from you.
Yes.
Success story.
Yes, of course. Oh, I want to share. It was 3 weeks before, and you, Tom, was a part of this day. It was not in Germany, it was in Czech. There was a farmer who starts CSA, and he also do working with horses. And as you can see behind me, I have a long experience in working with horses. And he told me that there's no advisor in whole Europe who can help him to work with horses and to help him to run the CSA. So I'm really happy that he called me on the phone, and then we do a lot of financial things via email. And Corona makes it impossible that I can come to the farm over 1.5 years. And then just 3 weeks before today, it was possible. So I come to this farm, and we were together with so much students about the new biodynamic training program in Czech. And for me, it was really one of the best days in the last time, because there was 20 people who want to learn how we can run a CSA and how we can do it with horses, and how we can bring all this together. And it was such a nice day. And after a day like this, I was so full of power and think, yeah, this is the world I want to have. And this is the way I think people can go. And we all have from this spirit was it was a little bit in the video you show in the beginning. This spirit of this video we have on this day too for me, and it was just great. So that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus, for sharing this wonderful story. I will also keep it in my heart for a very long time. Very powerful inspiration. Zoltán, how about the Hungarian success story?
Oh, our network is, for the network meetings, is one thing I want to mention. We have like 10, 12 core farms in the CSA network in Hungary, and it's really open and honest, and it's so we can check out each other's finances, and it's really open, and it's quite helpful because you have such a strong support network behind you. It's really interesting and quite good. So if you have problems, and you always have some issues, you can go to a meeting and get home with new ideas and new energy and solid information. It's not speculation. If somebody tried it and it worked, and they can show it, and it's really good. And in these meetings, we always invite the new members to join us, and sometimes it really works out well. So they go home. The last such story, I was just I wasn't at the meeting, but there is this CSA farm near us, and we have a common pickup location or drop-off location, and we meet every week. And after the meeting, he came home, or they came home, and they said, yeah, we heard that, and they told us that, and we will try this, and it worked, and it was really good. And just one problem of theirs is just went away, and their life just became easier. It was so good to see after the struggles they had to deal with this issue, and it just clicked and worked. It was really good.
Thank you, Zoltán. Thank you very much. And Suzy, could you also contribute with your success story of building a solid relationship between mentors and mentees?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my example isn't a specific one, but we do an annual survey of our members in kind of January, February every year. And what we hear every time is just how much the relationships between CSAs matter, and how much as a network, our facilitation of those relationships, which isn't entirely through mentoring, it's also through bringing people together in CSA events, but a lot of it is mentoring. That's something that our members find hugely important, and it really builds the sense of, I mean, we also hear that CSA is, can be incredibly isolating, especially for the kind of, rural CSAs, and that actually that solidarity and that kind of connection with other people who are on the same journey is hugely inspiring.
Thank you, Suzy. And before we wrap up, I'd like to take one very last question from Ruth Kachner from the USA, who asked us to read it for her. So her question is whether you would extend the scope of mentoring beyond farmers to include CSA core groups. So Ruth writes that she knows that many CSA are farm-based and administered by farms, but in their large city in the US, farmers are based elsewhere, 1 to 4 hours away. So the CSA is dependent on a group of volunteers to handle many aspects of its administration. Is that something that networks of mentors addresses, or is it not an issue with the CSA in the EU? So what do you think about this question? Suzy, can you respond?
Yeah, I mean, we do, absolutely. But I think the CSA model in the UK is quite different potentially from, our CSAs range from producer-led, where it's, typically 2 people doing all the farming and all the management and admin, to the community-led ones, where it's typically a voluntary board doing a lot of the management and admin and employing farmers to do the growing. I mean, most of our CSAs are horticultural. We do have meat ones, but so we would offer mentoring to anyone who was needing support with running or setting up a CSA, whether they were the farmers themselves or whether they were voluntary board members. yeah, so we offer mentoring to the core group as well as to the farmers. It just depends. And sometimes, I mean, we've actually just recently mentored a CSA where we were working with the core group and the growers to think about the future of that farm. So it was more of a kind of facilitative process. So that was, I mean, I guess that's just a good example of how bespoke our process is in terms of what we offer.
Thank you. Thank you. Any of you, Klaus, Zoltán, would you like to respond to the question as well?
Yeah, I hope I understand the question right well, but so in Germany, we have both types. We have farmer-founded CSA and we have also consumer-founded CSAs, and we are experienced in both. And yes, they need different ways of mentoring, but it's able to do both ways. Maybe that's a short answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Zoltán?
We have a 1 day and a 3-day training, which is open to everyone, and mostly is so around 30-40% is farmer on these trainings, and the everybody else is from the consumer side. And also we are, I say we, but I'm not in the development group, but Sophie and her colleagues are developing a training specifically for consumers.
Right. Thank you. Now, we will put up a short poll so that you can share your thoughts and help us improve the preparation and content of these webinars. Please take now 5 minutes to answer it, and we will keep the meeting open a few minutes more so that you have time to fill in the poll before ending of this meeting. Please let me remind you that this webinar was recorded. It will be available within a few days so that you can share it with all your friends and colleagues, and stay tuned. And thank you very much to our guests and to all of you for joining us today. It was a lovely session. Thank you very much. And thank you as well to the whole team of partners for the great organizational support. Thank you. And please check our social media accounts as well if you would like to stay in contact and hear about future webinars. And of course, you can contact our panelists individually if you have further questions and would like to perhaps cooperate with them. So thank you once again, everybody. And this was lovely. And see you next time. Bye. And take the poll, please. Just to make sure that you understand where the poll is it's in the chat. Yes, we have the link freshly in the chat now. Thank you, Klaus. Thank you, Suzy. Thank you, Zoltán. Thank you for your time and sharing your experience with us. Bye.
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 Okay, so we are now